The streets are buzzing. New York Knicks, back-to-back wins. On the road in Chicago, the Knicks gritted it out with Karl-Anthony Towns' resurgence, finding his stroke as Jalen Brunson dishes out 9 dimes, and Mike Brown integrating Jose Alvarado late in the fourth quarters, right? Massive comeback against the Houston Rockets the night prior. We'll talk about it. Lots of fun topics tonight. Look at the data with Jose Alvarado, Jeremy Sohan in the limited sample, right? What can we see moving forward? We'll talk about it tonight, fam, as we recap our New York Knicks pulling off back-to-back wins and move to 37-21 on the season, right? Really sloppy performance last night in the first half especially, but the most important thing is you just pull these games out, man. You stack up the dubs. You just got to stack them up. It's a tricky part of the season right now where we're close to the playoffs. Players are thinking about it right after the All-Star break as well. But Karl-Anthony Towns, his resurgence is the major story in this one, right? Got a game ball against the Rockets, backed it up with a lone game ball last night, right? And we're going to bring up some plays of Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, pick and pop, 2-man game as well, which is what we want to see, right? To get the most out of this squad. Lots to talk about, fam, and break down. Ladies and gentlemen, great to have you with us. The day after the New York Knicks pulled it out in Chi-Town, and a really important win. Karl-Anthony Towns got defensive player of the game as well, right? You love to see it. And Karl-Anthony Towns, man, fourth quarter, Mike Brown had Huck Porty in there up until about 2.5 minutes remaining. The Knicks were struggling to get stops, but they weren't able to get the scoreboard where they needed to. So Mike Brown got Cat in the ball game, and it paid off in a major way. So we'll bring up the Cat highlights. We'll look at the power rankings tonight as well. NBA.com got the New York Knicks in 4 in the power rankings. So really important to see the New York Knicks continue after All-Star break, right? And pick up some big wins. We are 7-3 in the last 10 games. So as we roll the Karl-Anthony Towns highlights last night, he was overcoming contact. Definitely should have got to the line more, in my opinion. But like I said, we'll take a look at the data, right? What is Mike Brown going to do as he's trying to finalize a rotation, but he's giving Jeremy Sohan an opportunity to prove his role on this team? A lot of discourse over Jeremy Sohan right now, guys, in terms of, like, should he play? Should he play at all? Should he play over Diawara? And if he is going to play, what are the lineups that make the most sense, right? There's been a lot of lineups, as I'm going to bring up, that hasn't made any sense with Sohan. So it ain't just on Sohan. It's definitely on Mike Brown. And I'm going to tell you why, ladies and gentlemen. Sohan's played in 5 different lineups. Only 2 of them were with floor spaces, and one of them was in the +6, with 4 other floor spaces out there. We previewed the pickup and how Sohan would fit. A lot of us felt like he would fit alongside Cat, right? And that has been the case. Johnny Chiba's in the house. Great to see you, fam. Hope all is well. Everyone out here buzzing. And we're going to give Cat the game ball because last night, man, he was the Cat Panther, right? Rising from the dead. And Karl-Anthony Towns got the walk-off interview. You know, he said great things in terms of, the locker room and, wanting to show out for his teammates, but taking the opportunities when he's getting those looks on offense, right? And the pick and pop game with Brunson was big time. 9 dimes from JB. Not going to gloss over that. Right, Brunson wasn't efficient last night, but you love to see the 9 assists to only 2 turnovers. Now, closing lineup, last night, Mike Brown went back to the starting 5 to close the game out late. And that was interesting. It was very, very tricky that, earlier in the game, right? It wasn't really working out too well. But we all know the night prior, he benched Mikal Bridges, he benched Josh Hart, and had a Jose Alvarado, Landry Shamet closing lineup, which was big time in my opinion. And we're going to take a look at that because Jose has been absolutely big time. And I'm really happy with the pickup. And I see Jose closing more games out. He played up until about the 4th minute of last night's game. And then, he went back to, he went to Huck Porty and OG. Then he went back to Bridges and Hart back into the game. But Jose Alvarado, fam, in his limited sample, a closing lineup against the Rockets, got it done. Jose, Brunson, Shamet, OG, and Karl Anthony Towns. We'll talk about that. That is a net rating of 69, man, in 5 minutes, with a defensive rating of 40 and a 109 offensive rating. Very tiny sample. And you see some successful other lineups with Alvarado, but I like the Towns, OG, Brunson, Shamet, Alvarado lineup, and we'll take a look at that. We'll talk about that more tonight, fam. Jeremy Sohan too, right? I want to talk about that because there has been a successful lineup with Jeremy Sohan out there, right? If you want to have a debate and discuss it, fam, Diawara should continue to play in my opinion, but I understand why Mike Brown is getting a look at Jeremy Sohan first. There's the business side of it, in terms of, Leon Rose, the front office, picked up Sohan. They sold him a role with his agent, and there is a lineup with Towns, OG, Brunson, Shamet, and Sohan is a +6 in 3 minutes, right? And no surprise, all the other lineup Sohan's been in has been in a minus. Obviously a very small sample, but for one example, last night, man, he had Sohan with Huck Porty. The lineup up top, Sohan, Huck Porty, Alvarado, Shamet, Brunson. That was a -5 in the most 6.3 minutes. In 5 minutes, there was a Sohan, Alvarado, Shamet, Bridges, Towns lineup, which is the other lineup with floor spacing. That was -4. But again, very small sample. But the other lineups, it was Brunson, Robinson, Shamet, Sohan, and Diawara. So Sohan with Mitchell Robinson, that doesn't make any sense. Mike Brown, what are you doing? And of course, the Huck Porty lineup as well. So, there's a lot of things that we have to clean up. And obviously, he's trying to find a role for Jeremy Sohan. But it just goes to show that in that small, limited sample, there can be success with Jeremy Sohan with the floor spacing lineups out there, right? But very interesting. The Alvarado closing lineup against the Houston Rockets, 5 steals, second game with 5 steals out of 5 games, man. GTA 5 has been an unbelievable pickup. One of the best pickups of the trade deadline and a mid-season acquisition, right? Leon Rose hit with that one, and we'll find out what is in store with Jeremy Sohan, right, moving forward. But the biggest thing is I want to talk about some hesitation about Hart in the closing lineup. Hart has not been good these last 2 games, and I want to bring up a couple of plays to show why. Mainly, it's nothing to do with Hart's size, hustle. We all know that isn't in question. Size at times, depending on the lineup. But it's Hart's hesitation and decision-making, ladies and gentlemen. Josh Hart's decision-making sometimes. It irritates you late down the stretch in playoff games. We got to limit those turnovers, fam. And Josh Hart's a very cerebral guy. He plays off of instinct. And there were some plays where it was, what are you thinking, Josh Hart, right? Interestingly, as we watch around the league tonight, Detroit's doing battle with the Spurs, fam. We'll follow that closely. But Tankathon has just done a simulation, and we know the Washington Wizards pick is top 8 protected. Otherwise, it's coming to the New York Knicks. The latest simulation from Tankathon has Washington at 7, right? So it's fine margins, man. It's super close. Could there be an opportunity where the New York Knicks, right, get a top first round pick, right? not the top overall pick, but a good first round pick, right? Washington might win some more games, man. It's going to be close, in my opinion. So we will talk about that, right? But this is one of the plays that I'm talking about with Hart. Did the rewatch, and Josh Hart, man, this is a fast break opportunity. Basically, pulls it back out, and you see Mike Breen. Well, we hear Mike Breen on the call. He was talking about a questionable pass from Josh Hart, right? Right between OG and Hukporti, right? What do they say? You always blame the passer first, in my opinion, because you just look at Hukporti, right? I'm going to pause it right here, right? So right up until here, Hart's making the bounce pass, right? Trying to thread the needle. These are risky passes, and Hart likes to do this a lot, right? Slows it down, um, and right here, right? Who's that for? Hukporti, or is that for OG? Right now, Hukporti will talk a little bit about him. I think he's just eating minutes at the moment. Mitchell Robinson wasn't able to go in the back-to-back. Obviously, Hukporti's not going to play big, meaningful minutes, when it comes to later in the season in the playoffs. But I like the idea of him eating minutes on back-to-backs because, there's been a lot of complaints and criticism of Hukporti. I get it, right? He definitely hasn't taken a step forward. However, with Hukporti, right, he is the third string big. In the playoffs, if Mitch is in foul trouble or if Cat's in foul trouble or one of them's injured, you want to make sure that your third string center is kind of, you know, not rusty. He's getting some sporadic minutes. So I get the Hukporti eating minutes last night. They weren't pretty, but back to Josh Hart right here, threads the needle and a key turnover down the stretch in this one. So yeah, I never questioned Hart's hustle. I question the shooting, the hesitation, and the turnovers at times down the stretch. So I want to make this show more about, the final 24 games and what are our best closing lineups. What are some things that Mike Brown should tap into more? And what are some things that he should stay clear of, which is obviously a Jeremy Sohan and another non-shooter. And obviously we should debate, could we get Shamit in there, Alvarado, over potentially Bridges or Hart, right? It got the job done against the Houston Rockets, right? So I've always said, man, you got to ride the hot hand. If Hart ain't having a good game, we've got weapons now. We've got other options. Now, back to the positives from last night. Great to see you in the chat, D. Grant. I see you says if the Knicks are going to get to the finals, Cat must be a big part of the offense, even though Knicks do better when Cat's not scoring much. Well, first and foremost, the numbers suggest the Knicks are better, plus minus, when Cat's on the floor for like basically all of the top 5 to 10 lineups all have Cat in there. But as you say, Cat more engaged when he's getting more touches, right? This is a feature of Brunson Cat two-man game, man. Shout out to all the fans that have been talking about this for a long time now. We haven't seen enough of Brunson Cat two-man game, and we need to see more of it, fam. Shout out to Brunson for the 9 dimes, only 2 turnovers last night. Wasn't efficient, but was playing more of the point guard role. Right, here you go. Cat trying to set a screen. And look at that, wide open. That would have been a pick and pop, but Cat got to the line. So that was really, really key. Dirty Dancers in the building. Great to see you, fam. Yeah, we're looking at the good, the bad, the ugly. We looked at the Hart turnover and some questionable decisions. But yeah, Hart makes the hustle play. OG a little erratic as well. Poor decision from Cat, in my opinion. He should have let that one go. But again, we're looking at the positives in this situation. Brunson, Cat, top of the key. That has the potential to be the best two-man game offensively in the league. God knows why we haven't seen more of it. And you see Cat more athletic than the big man is able to get to the rack and get to the line, right? Great bounce pass from JB in this one. We just need to see a hell of a lot more of it too, fam. And only one non-shooter, right? Now, starting 5 is actually pretty good in the plus minus with Hart, Bridges, OG, Brunson, and Cat. Obviously, the only non-shooter technically is Josh Hart. I know he's shooting 40%, but I've said continuously, guys, I'm not really super confident with Josh Hart, you know, as a true floor spacer in the playoffs. We know they're going to tempt fate and players are going to sag right off of him. Is that going to get in Josh Hart's head, or is he going to fire at will without hesitation? You know, we're only going to find out come playoffs, but we need Mike Brown to really, you know, disappear these two non-spacing units, whether it be Sohan and Huck, you know, Mitch and Sohan, Mitch and Hart. Even that is real dicey in my opinion. Now you got Shamit playing so well, and I want to dedicate a segment to Shamit tonight, guys. And I definitely want to dedicate more time to talking about Jose Alvarado, because those two have been phenomenal, especially the Houston Rockets closing lineup. And Mikal Bridges' floor spacing hasn't been great. You know, even his corner threes haven't exactly been, you know, spot on. But NBA.com got us up to the 4th power ranking now, fam. So that always great to see. Dirty Dancer says always has been. Cat hate is people who crash out over second quarter offensive fouls. One thing that I can definitely correlate is when Cat's more involved on offense, you see better defense. I don't think anyone can really doubt that. Not saying Cat's been a great defender or anything, and you know if he can just hold his ground and like you say, not give up those offensive fouls and cut back on those. That is a key situation. And I've maintained, as Kendrick Perkins has said on Get Up today, is the difference between the Knicks going to the finals and getting past the Detroit Pistons is Karl Anthony Towns, right? Because, he's such a talent, right? And the numbers suggest it too. Now, another pleasing thing is net rating, guys. The last 15 games, our New York Knicks are leading the league in net rating. The past 15 games, plus 13.7. Right, let that sink in. Right, this isn't really a small sample, too. 15 games. There's been some tough games there. We played Detroit twice in these last 15 games. We played the Rockets. We played, obviously, we played Philly. I think we played the Denver Nuggets. Plus 13.7, Detroit plus 11, too. So we're starting to really pick things up, right? Obviously, last night was more of the second night of a back-to-back, in my opinion. They just came out lethargic. I see some people say that's no excuse, but truth is, it's one of the main reasons the team looks lethargic. I think we got to spread the minutes better. Mikal Bridges, we'll talk about him, because I feel like Bridges is playing not even up to his capacity, and that's frustrating alone. But he's the guy that hasn't, missed an NBA game, and obviously I think he's just, playing on fumes right now. Mikal Bridges' effort doesn't look like he's healthy. Maybe he should sit a couple games. We know it won't happen. It is what it is. But the starting five at times, especially on the second night of a back-to-back, it just needs more energy, man. It needs more energy. I would like to see Jose Alvarado maybe start a game, especially Landry. What do you guys think about that? But great to see us pull a win out, because, yeah, sweeping a back-to-back is tricky. It don't matter what time of the season. It don't matter who it is, let alone Rockets, Bulls. That's tricky. You pull out the 2 wins, that's all that matters, man. You just got to stack up the wins. This is a tricky part of the season where, as I said earlier tonight, teams are feeling about the playoffs. Teams are looking ahead too much, and it is easier to overlook some of these opponents, right? But in keeping with the theme of tonight, man, it's so much about lineups. With the new talent, the pickup of Alvarado and the pickup of Jeremy Sohan, right? This is the lineup that closed it out against the Houston Rockets, fam. And it is pretty much the best lineup, net rating-wise, with Jose Alvarado, fam. It's played in 2 games. Now, Alvarado in 3 games has played 12 minutes with Diawara, Shamit, Hart, and Karl Anthony Towns. that has a net rating of 41, a defensive rating of 108, offensive rating of 150. But again, this is such a tiny sample. Alvarado's only been here for 5 games, but it is still interesting to look at as we go further along. Where can we tap in to more of these good lineups, right? And especially with Alvarado, with other shooters, 5-out look, got it done against the Rockets, Towns, Anunoby, Brunson, Shamet. In 2 games played, 5 minutes, it's been the best lineup with Alvarado. Defensive rating of 40, man, which is obviously askew because of the small sample. Another lineup, he's played with Towns and Robinson, with Shamet Bridges. No Brunson in that one. That had a killer offensive rating in 8 minutes. But look, the pleasing thing is Alvarado's shooting is underrated. He's definitely been able to knock down the open threes that Deuce McBride was able to knock down. Vaughn Allen, salute. Shez V, what up? Fam, feeling good. Knicks pulled out 2 wins in a row after the Detroit loss, bounce back. Now we've got the big one against Cleveland. That's a big one in the standings. Dirty Dancer says he's at least average, probably above average. Don't believe he's top 10 like advanced stats say. Spurs about to humble the Pistons. Yeah, let's hope. Luke C, great to see you. GTA is a blessing. Yeah, you put him in the Garden, let alone on this team, and it's just a recipe for success, man. He fits like a diamond. He fits like a glove, and I want to see more of these lineups together. But let's talk a bit about Landry Shamet as well, because last night, the night before against Houston, Landry Shamet has been outplaying Mikal Bridges, right? Stefan Bondi's tweet that got a lot of attention, talking about Mikal Bridges, 5 first-round picks, the salary, all of that. As I said earlier, Mikal Bridges just isn't playing up to his capacity. He can play so much better. He hopefully will play a lot better later in the season when we get to the playoffs. But yeah, he looks either tired, lethargic, banged up, whatever it is, man. He just needs to rest. But we know that's not going to happen. But Mike Brown has the ability to switch up these lineups too and chop and change, right? We have this depth, right? And as I said earlier, I don't mind Huck Porty eating minutes last night because Mitch wasn't playing, and he does have to choose the lineups Huck Porty is out with a lot better. No minutes with Sohan or no minutes with Josh Hart, in my opinion. But you want your third string, not rusty in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, just in case of foul trouble and whatnot. But we haven't seen Sohan as a small ball 5 with OG Anunoby. So we might see that. If I'm going to make a prediction, I think Mike Brown's probably going to play Sohan for another five more games at least before he, really starts to fine-tune the rotation. And he's going to have to fine-tune that with at least 15 games to go, in my opinion, because, it is getting late. It is getting late early, sorry, as we get closer to the playoffs. But yeah, Deuce McBride, hopefully he's back with at least 5 games remaining. He can shake off some of that rust. But with these lineups with Sohan, right, we are gonna closely monitor that situation, right? But Mike Brown deserves some criticism, guys, because look at the lineup Sohan has played with. That's why I'm not really buying into too much Sohan shade right now. Last night it got to an extreme level where people were just like, what are we doing? But if you look at a successful lineup with Sohan, is exactly what I predicted when we picked him up. Towns, OG, Brunson, Shamet, Sohan is a +6, right, in 3 minutes. All the other lineups not successful, but obviously with no 5-out lineups, or no 4 other shooters. Sohan with Hart in the bottom lineup, that's played 2.5 minutes, right? What are we doing with that? Sohan and Hart just doesn't fit. Sohan and Mitchell Robinson in the third lineup here, 4 minutes, that doesn't fit. Sohan with Bridges, Shamet, Alvarado, and Towns, I'm okay with that, right? If you really want to give Sohan a fair shake, I'm talking about a fair shake to be impactful with our squad. Those are the lineups you got to play him with. And then in the top lineup, Brunson, Shamet, Huck, Porty, Alvarado, Sohan. I mean, that's the worst of the worst. Huck, Porty together with Sohan. It's like playing with two Rajon Rondos, fam. It's like playing with two Andre Robesons. Their offense might be worse than that, especially when it comes to you know the lineups, and no offense, right? No TKO, no Clarkson as well. Very interesting situation. Wouldn't mind seeing Tyler Kolek on the second night of a back-to-back for some of that energy. Demario, let's go, Knicks. Great to see you. Vaughn Allen says our D has been number one over those 15 games. There's so much potential still, and it's crazy to say we're third. We're not even playing our best, but Mike Brown's really going to earn his money, in my opinion. This is where I think we're really going to find out how good Mike Brown can be and how good of a coach he is, and he does lean on his assistants. So hopefully, he continues to listen and look at the data too. Dirty Dancer says, I've liked Sohan as a defensive specialist. Guy I never want to see again is Huck, especially with Sohan, yeah. I think Huck eating minutes on the second night of a back-to-back's okay for me, but you got to play him with some other shooters, especially not with Josh Hart, as we previewed that decision Hart made on the fast break. These are the things that I question having Hart late in a game in a playoff. You just don't make that pass, in my opinion. You gotta blame the passer in that. I don't blame Huck Porty. I certainly don't blame OG Anunoby. Like they're not even in a good position. Like Huck Porty's not even really looking, and he's in stride with a guy right in front of him in the rack as well. If he had a clear lane, that's an open dunk. But the center is kind of right in the restricted area, Nick Richards. So even if Huck Porty catches that, what's he going to do? Right, he's going to shoot a contested, out of control shot. So these are the things why Josh Hart is not a point guard, in my opinion. And you see Hart frustrated. You see him, demonstrative with the body language. I don't like that. Right, and this isn't a get on Josh Hart kind of segment. This is just kind of like more so emphasizing that I want to see Alvarado and Brunson together, a lot more. Hart and Brunson work well together. I like that combination. Hart with Bridges, but yeah, Hart together with Huck Porty, right? Mike Brown, that was the worst decision he made last night, and I've seen a lot of people comment on it. Definitely deserves criticizing because Cat came in with 2 minutes remaining and we closed the game out, right? Huck Porty never should have been in the game in this kind of situation. And it's all about knowing your personnel, what Hart is good at, what Sohan is good at, what Mitchell Robinson is good at, and what they're not good at, right? But here we know what this guy is good at. Karl Anthony Towns, shooting threes. That's been a major part of his renaissance, the 3-point attempts, fam. They've definitely looked at some film over the All-Star break, in my opinion, and they've definitely, utilized some practice, I think. Here, the two-man game again with JB. Dirty Dan says Hart deserves some shade, honestly. Needs to return from All-Star break. Yeah, the vacation coming out rusty, most definitely. D. Grant says, yeah, that's what I mean. Cat has to play good on both ends for the Knicks to get to the finals. Yeah, when we talk about Cat's touches, I want him out on the perimeter first and then moving towards the rack. Get the gravity out from the perimeter first and get the defense stretched. Then Cat can do this. See, this is so key because the guy closes out, right? Let me pause it right here, right? So, Cat's in this position, right? But what's happened earlier in the game is important. Cat's hit some threes. Cat's made the opponent pay, right? Here, Nick Richards closes out heavy, and it allows Cat to then turn a little bit, absorb the contact, and actually get a legitimate foul call, right? That's a legitimate, non-arguable foul call because Cat protected the basketball and he got great positioning, but all because Nick Richards was having to close out heavy, right? The reason Cat hasn't had much success working from the post first is because they put a wing on him, or they put Jalen Duran, Beef Stew, someone that he can't really move too well, and then he struggles to then move out and space it out. Now, I want to see so much more of this Cat out on the perimeter first, with the floor spaced out. You've got Mikal Bridges, you've got OG Anunoby, and you've got Josh Hart in the other corner. So Josh Giddey, kind of low IQ situation. Josh Giddey shouldn't be all the way there, in my opinion, on Josh Hart. And that allowed Cat and Brunson way too much space. Like right here, the Knicks haven't really been getting this kind of spacing recently, especially with Josh Hart out there. Chicago Bulls, man, they were trying to lose the game for so many reasons. But, yeah, Josh Giddey right there on the corner on Josh Hart. He should be closer with kind of 1 foot into the paint, right? Josh Giddey's not even in the picture in this one. Giddey's right foot should be in the paint already, kind of like where Buzelis is, but on the other side to seal off some of the lane. But yeah, God knows why he's out there on J Hart, but it helped us out too, fam. J Dub's in the building. Great to see you. Sohan has good potential. We must give it time. He averages 10, 5, and 2, 22 years old. Yeah, I understand Mike Brown's going to continue to give him a shot. It just has to make sense when he's getting played and where. I feel like 10 minutes max is probably the sweet spot, and that can be replicable come playoffs, maybe 8 to 12 minutes, somewhere in between. But it's got to be with some other spaces and maybe some small ball five. Maybe some small ball five, definitely with Karl Anthony Towns, right? As we look at, once again, the tankathon situation, man, the latest simulation, Washington at 7. There is a legitimate chance if the Knicks can get some luck, man. Hopefully, man, we are due. Washington might slip out of the top 8. Right, we'll pay close attention because as the race for the play-in and the playoffs hot up, so does the tank race, man. And these players, man, I lose track of how many players in Utah have and Sacramento have mailed it in for end of season surgery. Is the key to our championship dream, says J Dub, is Cat. Johnny Chiba says Cat is so talented, his awkward plays get overlooked, but I see every time he's out on the ground and Knicks down 5-on-4 in transition seems to be a recurring theme, and more so in the losses. Yeah, that's why I think it's critical where Cat is getting his shots up and touches. And perfect timing. We roll all of Cat's highlights. See, look at all of his shots with spacing, and he's able to make a quick decision, right, without someone draped all over him. Now it helps with Yabu and Nick Richards out there. Let's see who they put on him against Detroit, right? It's going to be Jalen Duran out there on the perimeter, which is exactly what we want, him being pulled out of the paint when it comes to him. And we all know Cat should be able to blow by Isaiah Stewart, but he's also Bickerstaff going to put Tobias Harris on him, right? That's when you definitely need Cat more out on the perimeter, in my opinion. Now, people might say the opposite. You want Cat trying to beat up on Tobias Harris down low. But so far, that hasn't worked very well, in my opinion. It's been ugly because Cat, he tries to pound the rock, tries to beat up on Tobias Harris. And then in the playoffs, they're going to let a lot of that physicality. And they're going to let Tobias kind of maul Cat like some of those wings. I prefer to get Cat going out on the perimeter first. Like I said, I think that's really, really key. You know, yeah, as we see the Knicks' success, obviously over the last 15 games, man, with the best net rating, 13.7, best in the league over the last 15. Um, as Dirty says, part of me wonders if Detroit's success against us is because Duran was out every time. Definitely, styles make fights in certain matchups, we haven't seen. And I'm gonna talk about Deuce McBride too. I don't think Deuce McBride has played in any of the Detroit matchups. If he has, it was only the first one. He definitely hasn't played in the last two. We simply need another pull-up threat against Detroit. I'll tell you why. Because they're so good at keying in on Brunson, right? They've got the long size, the wings. They put up a brick wall. And Brunson played into their hands with the tunnel vision and just trying to take that matchup personally. Fam. If we have a healthy Deuce McBride against Detroit, Brunson can act like a decoy off the ball a little bit. He can get Orsar Thompson chasing him around off screens. You might be able to get Orsar Thompson in more tricky situations into foul trouble, all those things. What Orsar Thompson wants to do is pick up Brunson 1v1 at the top or pick him up full court, right? We're not even doing a good job at setting a screen at half court, I think, to get JB off of Orsar Thompson going downhill. You know, kind of how they let Cade get downhill as well. So with Brunson and Deuce together, I think we're going to be able to get downhill against Detroit's defense a lot better. But also we got to get into our sets a lot quicker against Detroit too. We're kind of trying to be too much of a one-man wrecking crew, when it comes to that. And this is what Brunson can do best, get the defense collapsing. And this was the game-winning play, 9 assists from Brunson, and he finally got Mikal Bridges to hit an open shot. Man, finally, in front of the Bulls bench, right? Hopefully that can get Mikal Bridges going, because I think his three-point shooting has been down. He's missed so many timely shots, and I guess the shot that I feel the best with Mikal Bridges is the mid-range, right? The little mid-range couple dribble pull-up 3-point ball. It's been, I don't think it's been spoken about enough. Mikal Bridges hasn't really been great spacing the floor out to the point where they really, are sweating it. And also OG Anunoby as well. He's starting to come good, but he's had a really funky patch as well from downtown. Uh, Johnny Chiba says, I'd like to see Alvarado run the point with Brunson at the 2, plus OG, Cat, and Mitch, or Sohan, to contend against height disadvantages. Yeah, I'm really down for the Alvarado Brunson until Deuce McBride is back. And then I think Alvarado, will command that bench point guard role. And I want to see Deuce McBride together with Brunson as those closing lineups. Now, Hart, it's hit and miss, right? I really don't have a whole lot of confidence in Hart in closing lineups against Detroit, because again, that's just going to allow his defender to collapse on Brunson so much more. And if Hart is out there, what does that mean for Deuce McBride? You lose another pull-up threat. Mikal Bridges hasn't been able to get that separation as well. So I know our starting 5 looks good in the plus minus, but I'm not confident against Detroit with that closing lineup with the starting 5. We'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Maybe Mike Brown wants to play Deuce more, but he can't. But in the meantime, like Johnny Chiba said, Jose Alvarado is that guy, right? And it paid dividends against the Houston Rockets. Vaughn Allen says, I just think Hart needs to be a bit more careful with his passes, generally speaking. Yeah, he plays off of instinct too, but he also he's sped up. That's the thing about Hart, and it works well if he's finishing at the rim. But the thing is about Hart, man, and I wish he was, a bit more taller, obviously, but with Hart, he plays below the rim. That's the tricky part. Hart's finishing at the rim. He's not an above the rim kind of guy. So he doesn't quite bring the rim gravity, and he's not a floor spacer as well. Now, when he's getting downhill in transition, it can help. And he's got the little floater here and the little foul line pull up at times. That can be effective. But yeah, he's that Swiss Army knife. I just don't think we need to be married to a Josh Hart closing lineup. Um, Starting, I guess, like it's going to continue. I don't see it changing too much. But yeah, closing lineups, the 5 out is definitely going to help Cat get going a lot more. But what fans need to understand, man, the two things correlate. When Cat struggles in the paint or Brunson's struggling, it usually correlates to Josh Hart being out there because, simply put, another defender comes across into the help, into the gaps, and they make life so much more difficult for OG Anunoby to get downhill as well off the curl. They make it so much more difficult for Brunson to get any kind of separation because the moment he gets, he might get by his defender. Josh Hart's defender is sealing the gaps. And if Hart is out there, it just means they're allowed to put Tobias Harris or a wing onto Karl Anthony Towns as well. So all those things kind of correlate to being out there. And that's why I'm really keen to see Alvarado with Brunson. Allows Brunson to play off ball, but also with Deuce McBride too. Now Landry, our guy Landry Shamet, able to finish strong too. He's been finishing at the rim really good recently, and he's able to dribble and create something too. So that makes Landry Shamet more valuable than Mikal Bridges right now, in my opinion. I don't even want to debate who's a better player. Right now, it's clear to see who's playing better right now and who's more effective. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. Who's more effective with our team and the lineups? And Landry Shamet has definitely been more effective than a Mikal Bridges. For these reasons, Mikal doesn't want to take it to the rack like this. This isn't what you're going to see from Mikal, right? Trying to finish over a center. Also, Landry Shamet will pull up from downtown off movement too and hit it at a higher rate. Hit a big time three last night too off the kick out. So that was big time from Landry too. But also defensively, Landry Shamet has even been defending better than Mikal Bridges in terms of fighting over the screens. He's got two, hurt shoulders. He's still fighting over those screens and able to stay in front more than some of the other guys too, which is incredible. But what a pickup, man! I think Landry Shamet's definitely earned more than the minimum, right? If the Knicks are going to keep Landry Shamet around, I think they are going to have to pay him more than the minimum. Maybe they can give him an exception. What do you guys think? $5 million exception. Hopefully the Knicks will have access to that to keep Landry Shamet around, right? Because he's so valuable, man. Off the bench, he can close. Clarkson's out of the rotation now. So that increased the importance of a Landry Shamet, a guy who can score off the bench. Alvarado's not so much of a shot creator, but we need the offense off the bench. Diawara, Sohan, not going to get a whole lot of offense from them. Landry Shamet is our offense off the bench at the moment. Obviously, when Deuce McBride gets back, that is going to be major. Johnny Chiba, Hardy's crashing over a lack of sleep and a sugar high. He needs to clean up his mind. Vaughn says Huck hands turn to butter the second half of the season. Yeah, I think he's starting to feel some of the pressure. Hopefully he can shake off some of that rust. I do think Huck Porty can be better than what we're seeing, and I do think it's a lot of rust. But can you trust him down the stretch in big games at all? Dirty Dancer says Deuce did play the first one against Detroit. He was the only guy that played well. Yep, my memory is coming back. Definitely appreciate you for that. Yeah, the second and third games, obviously no Deuce. Mitchell Robinson didn't play in the second as well. But I just think it opens the door up for Brunson so much more, fam. Helping Brunson out, right? Everyone's so quick to get on Brunson, but you've got to understand the dynamics, right? If he's out there with other shot creators, the defense can literally, you know, wear him like a glove. You know what I'm saying? And so either got to get Cat going with Brunson, or you got to have Deuce McBride or Shamet out there, guys that are real threats that the defense is going to respect. With all due respect, the defense does not respect Josh Hart. They don't even respect Mikal Bridges to this point, and for the most part, they don't respect OG Anunoby. Right? Those guys might hit their catch and shoots or whatever, but they're not going to sleep at night shaking in their boots because of Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. They're going to be scared about Brunson, first and foremost. They're going to be scared about Karl Anthony Towns, and they might be scared about Landry Shamet getting hot. And Deuce McBride. Let's call it what it is. Uh, you know? And obviously, if Hart and Sohan want to be effective, Huck, those guys, Diawara, those guys are just going to get gritty physically. That's how they can be most effective. You know, those guys got to make the opponent worried from a physical standpoint, not from their skill set. You know what I mean? So please, more 5-out lineups, Mike Brown. And Dirty echoes that with Brunson trying to run through Orsar, it's not going to go well. Has to trust the teammates and pick the spots. Yep. Also have to read what the defense is going to do, right? Let's say Brunson out at top. Let's say he does drive past Orsar, get some separation. Well, someone's going to be in the gap, right? Unless we've got really good floor spacing out there, someone's going to be right there in the gap. Brunson has to be quick to get rid of the ball. Just get rid real quick. The problem is Brunson, as you say, he holds on to it too long. I tweeted this out last night. It does feel like Brunson is about sometimes 3 to 5 seconds too late moving on from the basketball. Just that extra couple of dribbles, everything resets and everything slows down. And, we're forced to take a tough shot. So Brunson does have to be better, man. Moving the ball quicker. Al Tango, salute. Coach Brown needs to find a way to incorporate more beneficial players depending on who we play. Let's have that conversation about Diawara now, because you make a fair point that he can bring everything Sohan brings, but with the shooting, with the floor spacing, so there's less headaches, there's less potential, funk for the offense. Now, I'm not flipping out right now because I know Mike Brown is simply trialing Jeremy Sohan. I'm not worried that he's not going to go back to Diawara. I think there's a real chance Diawara, gets his minutes back or, has a key role. I think what's happening right now is they're simply giving Sohan a chance because of the business, They picked him up, they obviously sold him on a roll, and you got to give it a chance. Now, you got to give it a smart chance and play him with Cat and some other shooters, or play him at the small ball. You can't play him with Hart. You can't play him with Mitch, and you damn sure can't play him with Huck Porty as well. Who you can play him with though is Diawara. I pulled up the 5-man lineup. Sohan with Diawara. There is some effective lineups with Sohan together with Diawara. Right? Like I said, as long as the other guys can shoot it, that's no issue. So I don't really want to clown on Sohan per se and his fit. It's got to be the right lineup. We all know Sohan brings a skill set that this team might need. As we relive the thrilling comeback against the Houston Rockets with Jeremy Sohan playing limited minutes, but Jose, the star of the show, down the stretch defensively. But yeah, Sohan's played 3 games, so you got to see what else plays out. I think maybe in a couple more games, right? Dirty Dan says the last 2 games they've used Cat way more as the screener as well. That's a great point. I don't know why we haven't seen that enough. The pick and roll and the pick and pop. I do remember early in Cat's tenure, he was setting some illegal screens and, he wasn't setting strong picks. Maybe that's why Thibodeau didn't want to use it too much with the dribble handoffs. But it also, look, running through Cat, running through Deuce, having Brunson off the ball can make Brunson even more dangerous, right? Brunson ain't just the most dangerous with the ball. He's also dangerous off the ball. Because then what does Orsar Thompson do? You know what I'm saying? Suddenly you've got him chasing Brunson around screens, and you've got, Orsar Thompson away from the play, you know? The same way they want to get OG off of Cade, or they want to get OG off of the play because he's so effective on the ball defending. We need to try to get Orsar Thompson out of the play if when we are playing Detroit, because that's what they're banking on. They're banking on their top perimeter defender to muddy it up. And that's why Alvarado with Brunson is so good. That's why Deuce McBride with Brunson is good. Is because, okay, we can choose each possession. All right, we're going to get Brunson off ball in this one. We're going to get the corners spaced out with Cat at the top as well. And we're going to be able to let, Jose or Deuce make some plays as well, So let's see, man. Like I said, Mike Brown's really going to earn his way in this one. Lonnie Meek, salute, says, agreed, Shamet is playing better than Macau. Bridges, yep. David Smith says, Cat is showing he's the best player on the Knicks, right? Whoever's got the hot hand, I'm okay with, as I just said, kind of echoed this in a way that any night it could be Cat or Brunson. Brunson can be as dangerous off the ball. We saw last night 9 dimes. He wasn't even as efficient. Dirty confirms we won't have any exceptions, but with the early bird rights, we could give him up to 10 milli. Wow, that's music to my ears. So yeah, we could go into the second apron, is what you're saying. Even though we don't have cap space, we have early bird rights on Landry Shamet because he's been here for more than 2 years, right? Has it been 2 years or more than 2 years? Either way, I think that sounds good. Early bird rights. We can keep him. I don't think he's going to get a crazy deal, but he has deserved more than the veterans minimum. Most definitely. I would like Macau Bridges to play so much better. Like, it's just so frustrating at times. I know he's capable of it as well. It shouldn't even be a conversation because the Macau Bridges, even in times in Brooklyn, Phoenix, was just so much better than what we're getting, which is crazy to sound because he was regressing in Brooklyn. But I'd almost sign up for the Brooklyn Macau Bridges right now because it's better than the one we're getting. I don't know if it's because of his lack of touches and he's not in rhythm. Don't know if he's just too tired, banged up. Yeah, I think there's a big role for Sohan to play situationally in the playoffs. The point I'm going to make tonight is I don't think anything needs to be like final. Like Diawara got to play every game, Sohan shouldn't play at all, or Sohan should play every game. I don't think the playoffs should go that way, fam. I think you got your core 7 guys, and then I think in the playoffs, like we saw against Indiana, you could go game dependent. You can never rule out anything as a final. Clarkson might be needed in a certain game. You just never know. Foul trouble. That's why I like Huck Porty kind of, not being in the doghouse all the time, because what's going to happen if Cat gets injured or Mitch is in foul trouble or whatever, and you've got to dust Huck Porty off in the playoffs and he hasn't been playing. I know he's third string, but at least he's not going to be too rusty, Johnny Chiba says, CT, what kills me is when Cat, one of the best shooting big men, passes up open threes for the forced drive to the bucket. That half the time results in a foul or hitting the deck. Just shoot in rhythm. Yeah, he likes his chances of putting the ball on the deck, making a play. But yeah, you got to read the defense, fam. If there's a big man in the paint, it's kind of tricky and forcing it. Now, I was watching that run in the game 3 against Indiana, where he scored 20 in the fourth quarter, and he was taking Miles Turner off the dribble. He was pulling up. He was doing everything, but that was a favorable matchup, you know. So, in my opinion, you definitely got to alter your approach per matchup. Like there's certain matchups where Cat just can't bulldoze his way to the rack. And it is going to be against Jalen Duran, Isaiah Stewart. He is going to have to pull those guys out, put put up those threes. And I think our guys have kind of made some adjustments these last two games. So could this be the key? Man, Mike Brown, All-Star break, watching the film. Could the, could this be the major key to our success utilizing Cat out here? They want to put a small guy on him. Okay, take those threes. Like Johnny Chiba said, don't hesitate. Uh, David Smith says 22-3. The Knicks when Brunson has fewer than 20 attempts. The Knicks are only 14-14 when Brunson has more than 19 field goal attempts. Yeah, it plays into the defense's hands. It's beyond even how effective Brunson can be. It just simply makes us easier to guard. We all know Brunson is amazing at hitting tough shots, and especially down the stretch when defenses are tight, 2 minutes to go, Brunson's the man you still want with the ball in his hands because he's proven it. But also, there are three other quarters. There is, you got to get guys going. OG and Cat get so much more engaged defensively when they're getting their touches. I also think pace. Pace is so key. One thing I don't like when Brunson, even when he's not getting picked up full court, sometimes he will just, lollygag. He will just, walk the ball up the court very, very slow. Got to play with purpose. Maybe fatigue has a part to play, but he has to be, honest about with the coach, and maybe limiting some minutes. We've got help now. We've got Alvarado. Deuce will be back for the playoffs at that time. Um, you know, I really want to know, like, you made that move for Mikal Bridges. It's not just because of his defense. Mikal Bridges is supposed to be a guy that can create and bring the ball up as well as maybe a secondary, tertiary creator or ball handler. Mikal Bridges isn't even doing that really. We're putting him out in the corners, and he's not really facilitating too much either. Luke, do you think coach will trust Diawara during the playoffs? I think we'll know with about 15 games remaining. That's when I think Mike Brown is going to tighten up the rotation. I think what are we at now? We've got 24 games left. So I think the next 9 or 10 games is going to continue to try to experiment a little bit. And then I think with 15 to go, we'll have a better idea of how Deuce McBride is, his timetable, his recovery. And that's when I think he'll decide, okay, what have I seen from Sohan? What's going to happen with Diawara? But sure, I think Diawara would get some opportunities in the playoffs. His probably role would be decreased, but he'll probably more of a end of possession, 30 seconds to go end to end the half, put him out there, use up his length to try to get a stop. I think those are the kind of possessions Diawara will get in the playoffs. I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play like more than 10 minutes, but I do think Mike Brown would trust him out there in a possession or two. Guys are way more engaged on both ends when Brunson cuts his ISO ball a little. Definitely. Especially against the specific matchups. You just got to understand, like, you don't got to be personal. Osar Thompson's a great 1v1 defender, and whatever's best for the team. Use him as use yourself as a decoy to get Thompson out of the play sometimes as well, right? I'm sure like Kawhi Leonard at the height of his powers when he was like Yeah, he's still a great defender, but I'm sure when he was like, the best of the best, late down the stretch, they will try to do everything they can to get Kawhi Leonard off of you, and get, you got to treat Thompson with that kind of respect as well, and not just try to bulldoze. Uh, Doug Fresh, salute. Cat, keep playing like this, we'll be all right. Yeah, there's real positive signs, man. Still 24 games remaining. Let's see this continue, man, because, yeah, Cat looks refreshed. Brunson looks more open to the two-man game. Just figuring out these extra lineups. I'm a kind of guy that thinks that things correlate. Like, it's no coincidence we have Alvarado now, which gives us an extra weapon with flexibility. Now we're starting to see Brunson with Cat and get their game going more. Alvarado with Cat as well, right? We know Alvarado's a better ball handler than Deuce, and he's a real point guard. So I think that's been a small part as to why Cat's also got going, because we can get downhill quicker. We're making quicker decisions with Alvarado as well. Without Alvarado, it's back to the slower pace. Brunson playing slow ball as well. Wayne, salute. I think taking Mo D out of the rotation isn't a good thing. Yeah, I understand. Things look really nice with our Diawara when he was comfortable with his role. Especially some of those games, man, knocking the threes down, all of that. Let's see. I'll definitely be critical if they give Sohan a good shake, even with spacing lineups, and it doesn't look good, and they don't go back to Diawara, then I'll definitely be criticizing that. But for now, I think they see a role that Sohan can play. It's got to be to his strengths. Maybe some small ball five with some other shooters. I think in that small sample, Sohan did look like the best defender for Cade. So let's see if that's going to be a weapon if we can get to that point. But I definitely understand that Cade Sohan matchup could be something beneficial for the New York Knicks. Doug says, yeah, Shamet has been more lethal, most definitely. What's up, Eddie? Cat has to shoot when he's open and not force it when it's not there. Shooters need to shoot. That's a great point as well. Cat does pass up some open looks, and he's just got to let it fly. He's got to let it fly. But yeah, find out the best lineups. Landry Shamet's movement together with Cat is great as well. And we need more of that, man. What's such an underrated pickup that Landry Shamet has been, man. The final guy that we waited till the very end. He signed a non-guaranteed Exhibit 9. And what had to happen to get to that point? All the pickups aren't here from the summer, fam. Malcolm Brogdon retiring. Jordan Clarkson out of the rotation. Yabusele is off the team. And the last man still standing is Landry Shamet, man. For some fans, he was an afterthought. Like I said, took that sacrifice coming back from the injury with a non-guaranteed deal, was willing to wait it out to the final days of the summer to stick with the team. And here he is outplaying so many players, outlasting Yabu, Clarkson, and Malcolm Brogdon. Man, what a story of perseverance from Landry Shamet. But we know his quality, right? He's, been on winning teams with Phoenix, with the Clippers, and he's had, postseason runs, in the past. So Mike Brown, the coaches, Tibbs last year, the front office, they know what Landry was capable of, right? And he's way outplaying his veteran minimum status to the point where he can close lineups for a winning team over some of these other guys because of his skill set. He puts the ball on the deck. He's feisty. He'll fight over screens as well, and all of that. David says, does the hero ball style win you a chip? I would bet against it. I want a chip. Brunson hero ball won't do that, and it's not hard to understand or admit. Yeah, it's also more of not just the hero ball, it's just simply giving your other weapons chances to shine, you know? Look at the Rockets the other night. It was simply so predictable. Kevin Durant, dribble, dribble, dribble. You know, we didn't even need to guard no one else. You know, why do you think Jose Alvarado, as smart as he is, he knew the play? Jose Alvarado was like, "Yeah, no one else has taken this shot. It's going to be Kevin Durant." And he was able to leave his man, OG, was able to keep in front. Jose Alvarado goes back door and strips Kevin Durant because we all know who was going to shoot, you know, and Osar Thompson will do the same thing if Brunson doesn't get off the ball quick enough. You know, Brunson's got to make a couple dribbles and make a move. And if he's not able to make that shot, then make the pass, you know, make the pass and make the defense work right now. Why Cat can be so dangerous is he has the ability to punish teams with quick decisions like this one. Right? He doesn't even need to hold the ball very long, right? And I would argue the longer Cat holds the ball, the higher probability that it doesn't end well. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a turnover, or it's going to be stumbling and bumbling, you know, 4 dribbles to try to back the man down, and he gets hacked. Whereas the least that Cat and Brunson have the ball, uh, you know, the more dangerous they can be, especially with this quick pick and pop. Now, we go back to that Indiana game 3. Cat scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. That's unbelievable in just terms of the minutes. Like, if you can score 20 points in less than a quarter, that lets you know that you don't need to touch the ball very much, you know, to make maximum damage, you know. We'd almost take 20 points per game on efficiency. But if Cat can score 20 points in a quarter or two, I'll take that. I'll take that all day. Uh, Dirty says Brunson should study Isaiah Thomas, be the closer, set up guys early. I like Brunson coming off the screens too and the plays. And I do think the size might be limiting, but Deuce Brunson, Alvarado Brunson, I think he's going to be great in the playoffs, you know, because we're going to be able to advance the ball a lot quicker, you know, and get out and go. Most of the time we grab a rebound, the player looks around where Brunson is rather than actually going, you know, and focusing on just getting the ball up the court and punishing their transition D. Altango says Macau definitely needs to be more aggressive. Uh, we are him way too much for his lack of involvement. Yeah, it's all about aggressiveness with Macau. You hit it 100%. Couple dribble pull up, I'm okay with that. Make quick decisions, be aggressive though. He was more aggressive in the playoffs. It disappears when it comes to, you know, regular season games with Macau Bridges. Is it his body? Is it just, you know, his confidence? I don't know what it is. J Mar, salute. I think Macau has a fragile mind and lack of confidence. That's why he needed campaign to get him going. Uh, he was safe in Brooklyn, no pressure to win, and I honestly believe he would still be in Brooklyn if not traded. Uh, yeah, that's some fair points. You know, confidence, all of that. We've seen it come out, you know, in big moments against Boston. I just hope it comes out again. You know, definitely, we're a real championship threat if Macau Bridges is looking like a third option. You know, if he doesn't look like a third option, then suddenly we're reaching, man, for OG to step up, or we're reaching for Deuce to do a lot more. You know, and it just goes back to the salaries. You know, you are what you pay, what your team, or you should be what your team pays you. You know, in terms of hierarchy. But the fact that we're having a conversation that Landry Shamet, a vet minimum guy, is, you know, in that conversation of being better than Macau is nuts, man. It is absolutely nuts that we even having that convo. Um, Dirty Dancer in the countdown. Deuce 3 weeks down, 3 to 6 more to go. Dude. Yeah, Deuce is with the team too. You see him in the locker room on the bench as well. He's in that defensive player of the game, um, photos and all of that. I love to see that. So yeah, hopefully Deuce is going to come back soon. But look at Landry, man. Look at Landry's defense on Kevin Durant. Veteran minimum guy. You can't guard Kevin Durant any better than that possession. That Landry just guarded Kevin Durant, man. Used his low center of gravity to get up into Kevin Durant's dribble and make him make a tough shot over the top. Discipline without fouling as well. And then here we go. OG, Jose Alvarado knows the play because he's seen it 1,000 times. But what a finish from Jose Alvarado in that one, man. I think we are going to see a lot more of this closing lineup, especially. But yeah, impressive defense from Cat, sealing off the baseline with Şengün. And of course, who's in the passing lane? GTA 5, once again, for the thrilling finish. Louis Cypher goes as far to say is without Landry, we would suck. We would struggle, definitely. I don't think we don't win Houston, and we don't win last night as well. So that would kill us in the standings if we don't win these last two. It just goes to show how much we missed him last season with the reg season as well. Let's not forget Landry was out with the shoulder for most of last season as well, which is crazy. And then he came back. Johnny Chiba says Wingstop excels in the win streaks. Yep, definitely. We look at Jose Alvarado's 5 steals now. I would argue that Wingstop consists of Landry Shamet now. Wingstop's a 3-man business right now, a 3-man company, because we're getting more out of Landry at the point of attack as well. Al Tango says Jose's defensive mindset and motor match. This is why he's closing games lately. Yeah, I love that word motor as well. You see him get downhill quick. He's confident with the dribble. I cannot stress this enough, guys, down the stretch in the playoffs. The more guys you have that can dribble first, pass, and then shoot, right? In no particular order, but if you can dribble, pass, and shoot, you're always a threat to the opponent. You don't got to pick up your dribble. You're not easy to guard. You're unpredictable. The more players that can dribble, pass, and shoot. And that is why, as much as I love him, man, I'm questionable on Josh Hart because he picks up his dribble. Bam. For those that missed it earlier, this personifies Josh Hart, right? Pushes the tempo, wants to make something happen quickly, realizes that he's, can't do nothing because he's below the rim threat. The guy picks him up. He picks up his dribble, and he either makes a boneheaded play, bounce pass in traffic, or a jump pass and turns it over. And then with the body language, all of that. That's why down the stretch in the playoffs, man, he can be helter-skelter. It could be good sometimes, and you're like, wow, only Josh Hart could do that. Or it's sometimes like this, where it's like, man, we've seen this 1,000 times. Look at Jose Alvarado's reaction as well in the corner. Jose Alvarado's reaction, man, says the story, man. He looks disgusted with this one. And that's why, man, fast break opportunities, you got to finish, you got to convert, right? I call it slingshot basketball because you're out on the break. If you don't make them pay, they're going to make you pay. It's slingshot. When it comes to a turnover or a miss at the rim, the other team's going to punish you, man. You got guys like Huck Porty, Macau, and Josh Hart. They are not good in transition traffic when it comes to this, right? And bad decisions, man. It's tough. Dirty says, I'm not even sure why everyone decided to be mad at Macau lately. Did something change? Look, we're getting closer to the finish line. I think that's the pressure is really getting to people, fans, everyone, coaches, everyone's tight this time of year, especially with the standings, the pressure, the expectations, man. We're only 24 games away from tipping the ball up game one of the Eastern playoffs. Man, let that sink in, guys. We're only 24 games away from being either hosting, from hosting hopefully game one of the NBA playoffs at Madison Square Garden, man. We don't have a whole lot of time to really mess around. We don't have a whole lot of time to experiment too much. Now's the time where guys got to start to feel confident in their abilities, right? The leaders need to step up. The coach's playbook needs to come correct. Rotations need to be sharp and all of that. Now, I said this earlier. I think the positive thing is the games coming up to finish the season out is going to benefit us for the playoffs, because we are going to have some really tough games, man. Cleveland on Tuesday. We got Oklahoma twice. We got San Antonio. We got Milwaukee. We got more tough games coming up. We've got the West Coast trip. I think that is going to help us sharpen our iron, sharpen the sword, I think, for the playoffs, right? I don't want too many of these bum games heading into the playoffs, like Charlotte, Washington, Utah, Brooklyn, all of that. That's not going to tell us anything. Yeah. If anything, guys might be at risk of getting injured in those games, I want to see games against the tough opponents where we can really, figure out, these lineups and stuff, figure things out some more. We ain't going to benefit from a 40-point beatdown against Brooklyn or Washington, really. Yeah, JJ Salute says losing 3 games to Detroit can do that too. Yeah. Yeah, we're all so tight, man. I wanted the Knicks just to come out with a message and show their response to the last 2, but I think it was also timing, coming out of vacation, man. These guys were going to be soft coming out from the beach. They were coming off of their villa or wherever they were chilling on the All-Star break, right? Detroit were probably, they were circling that game as well. That's the thing. They wanted it more when it comes to that, but I think, we played into their hands, man. Mike Brown definitely has been outcoached against Detroit. That's the thing, right? It could be ironic that we let Tibbs go, but the series that Tibbs usually wins is against Bickerstaff. You know what I'm saying? He loses to Carlisle, but the coach that we need this season might be the coach that can outcoach Detroit. That could be that's most likely going to be the thing standing in our way. It's not going to be Rick Carlisle this year, man. That was last year. Rick Carlisle's, he's going to be on vacation by the time the Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals, hopefully. Although, wouldn't it be ironic if it's Joe Mazzulla? Wouldn't it be ironic if Detroit still crumble in the playoffs? Maybe they're still a year too young and they don't even get there. Wouldn't it be crazy if it's a Knicks Boston Celtics, just like we wanted 2 years ago? Knicks Celtics Eastern Conference Finals, man. Because the thing is, right, if I bring up the standings right now, and we're going to do a score check on the Spurs Detroit games, right? Yeah, let's pull this up right now. Okay, so locked in at halftime, Spurs with the narrow edge, 57-50. Right, so it'd be good for Pistons to take a loss in this one. But on the standings, right, there could be a chance that Cleveland Pistons second round. I'm not sure how it's going to fit. Maybe a Boston Pistons second round. Most likely not. Actually, yeah, the Knicks Celtics will avoid the Pistons in the second round. So I think the best we can hope for, it'll be Knicks Celtics most likely in the second round, and it'll be Cavaliers Pistons if they can get through in the second round, right? But look, we know regular season, man, Pistons haven't proven anything yet. We might just be jumping the gun in terms of everyone expecting the Detroit Pistons to be there, man. They have to go through some other, obstacles and hurdles before they even get a crack at us at the New York Knicks. As Dirty Dancer says, Bickerstaff is known for not having adjustments in the playoffs. Yeah, so many things can happen, fam. An injury, you don't wish an injury on anyone, but we've seen it with Tatum. It can happen. Also, we've seen suspensions. Jalen Duren, Beef's doing that. Try to play tough game. Try to play tough, man. Those guys might run into a buzzkill when it comes to that. Their lack of experience might show. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Dennis Jenkins just gets the yips. Looks like a nice regular season guy and gets to the playoffs. Dennis Jenkins, starts to play funky. That could happen. I do think they have a lack of shooting. Duncan Robinson's he's the lone gunner, but outside of that, Cade's not really going to kill us from three. Duran's not going to. Osar Thompson's not going to kill you from three. You hope Tobias Harris doesn't kill you from three. Outside of that, man, it's Duncan Robinson. Mostly. I just think it comes down to staying in front of Cade. You got to win the 1v1 matchup. If Cade starts to bully his one-on-one matchup and you got to bring the help, that's when he's going to kill you with finding the shooters and finding the great pass, right? But if we can get 1v1 coverage on Cade and good enough to slow him down and stay in front, stay out of foul trouble, whether it's OG, Sohan, Josh Hart, whoever, I don't think Mikal Bridges has much of a chance. Diawara even, right? Wouldn't it be unbelievable if Diawara ends up being the guy to get Cade, to slow down a little? That would be huge. But you got to be physical, man. They will allow more physicality, I think, in the playoffs, but definitely don't want one particular guy getting in foul trouble. So I think you got to rotate the bodies on Cade. If a guy gets 2 fouls quickly, you might have to change up the matchup because they are going to spam the Cade Cunningham. As much as they think we're predictable with Brunson, they're super predictable because it's going to be Cade Cunningham, rinse and repeat, pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll. Right? Maybe after 2 or 3 games, the Knicks might have, it might be predictable for them to figure it out. That's what Dirty Dancer's mentioning about no adjustments. Thing is, in these regular season games, there are anomalies. There are aberrations in terms of it's one game and you're back to the next thing. In the playoffs, you see the same things over and over and over again. I think it comes down to your IQ, and figuring out a counter and things like that. That's why I think guys like Alvarado on the floor, that can read the play, late game IQ is going to be big time. As much as I love Josh Hart for his bang bang play and aggressive approach, he can suffer from lack of IQ. I think late in games, at times. So can Cat. And having 2 point guard alignments out there could be the steady Eddie that we need. They're reading the play and punishing the defense, right? Now we talk about out west. We talked about the Rockets, man. Once Fred VanVleet went down, you see they don't have the IQ. It's Kevin Durant. Go save us. Go save us. Hero ball. That's got no chance out west. That's got no chance of really overcoming, big defenses down the stretch. JJ says, I got a feeling it will be Cleveland versus. That could happen, man. They've got the experience now. I think Harden fits next to Spider. Definitely much better. With the size especially, but the playmaking. getting Spider off the ball as well. That's another guy who's predictable at the point of attack. You can slow Spider down, but it also freezes everybody else out. But now they've got James Harden. They can put Spider off the ball. Luke says Knicks figured out how to beat the Cavs, then the Celtics. I got confidence they'll figure out Detroit. You and me both, man. I think we've got the weapons. It's just, figuring it out. It's just a damn shame we don't see them a fourth time in the regular season. But would the Knicks really reveal all their hands? I don't know, man. Let's imagine the Knicks played Detroit one more time. How do you think they would approach it? Do you think they would try anything different? I think they would definitely try Sohan on Cade a little bit more. I think, Brown was a little too slow, going to that look. OG with his toenail back, and Sohan will be our Cade stoppers, says Dirty Dancer. Yeah, I think that's our best chance. Definitely. You got to trust OG in those big moments, and then Macau coming as the help. Yeah. I ultimately think that the floor will shrink with their lack of spacing. You look at all the wins. What's been the common theme? The other guys have killed us. Tobias Harris, God knows, Javonte Green. You can't bet on those guys killing us every game. That's why I say each game's been an anomaly in terms of these regular season wins. Yeah, the Knicks are kind of stunk for the most part, all of the games, especially the second game. No Deuce, no Alvarado, no Mitch, and no OG. So you got to throw that game in the trash. You definitely look at the last game. I think the Knicks were the closest to version to what we can see. But as I also said, it was Cade's first visit to Madison Square Garden since we sent them packing. So he wanted to come to Madison Square Garden. He had that circled on his calendar as well, out of the All-Star break. So how many of these things are going to translate to when it eventually comes to the real deal? No Dura, no Stewart as well. Coach Brown needs to put together a better defensive plan against Detroit, especially against Cade. We should definitely put Sohan on him, says Altango. Yeah, if nothing else, just to frustrate him, get under his skin. I'm okay with Sohan using up 3 fouls, late in the possession. Provided we're not in the bonus and it's late in the possession, don't let Cade, find the pass. Don't let him, see over the top. Definitely make him play bulldoze basketball, but be physical with him. Cade has hit 47% of his threes against us, 31% versus the rest of the league. A regression is coming. I like to hear that. That's a good stat. That also highlights how poor our perimeter D has been, but also overhelping and also not being able to close out. Not being able to contest well enough too. Jose Alvarado is the help defender too. If Cade's not going to pass it quick enough, Jose can leave his man and try to pick his pocket back door like he did with Kevin Durant as well. You got to give Cade different coverages. That's the thing, guys. You can't just keep guarding him the same way. Otherwise, he's going to get comfortable as well. So sprinkle a little bit of 1v1. See what Cade does starting out. Is he shooting well? Force him into a couple of tough mid-range buckets. See how he's shooting. If he's getting hot and you start to bring a soft double or, you start to overhelp a little bit, you see what he does with the passing, but you got to do it quick. You got to, muddy it up and make him give up the ball real quick, not late in the possession where they'll get an open 3. That's where the Knicks got to figure out their coverage real quick. Right? I don't mind bringing the double and the trap, but it's got to be quick. You know what I mean? Not too late in the possession. Because Cade at 6'9", he can see over the top, and he can make the right pass now. That's the one thing I think he's definitely improved on, not just on the shooting aspects. I think the most frustrating thing in the last game to me was, you could see he was gonna kick it out, and we weren't ready to rotate. There was no one in the passing lanes. It was Duncan Robinson wide open in the corner. It's like, guys, if Cade's gonna give the ball up, you got to find the shooter. Seal off the lane. And he found Tobias Harris as well for a couple of open shots too. Our rotating and our passing lane coverage was terrible in the last Detroit matchup, but we were asleep. We were straight out of the All-Star break. We just weren't up for it. Uh, D. Apocalypse salute. Great to see you. Yeah, have the Knicks found what they need to? Some closing lineups that I've loved so far. Changing it up. Mike Brown willing to make some more adjustments. Not so much with Sohan, but with Alvarado off to a fire start, man. Look at these lineups with Alvarado. And until Deuce gets back, right, this is a lineup that I love to see more of, right? 5 out, but with 2 point guards, a nice mix of defense with OG Alvarado and Shamet. And in the limited minutes out of the 5 games, these guys have only played 2 games together. The 2 most recent games, we are on the right track. Net rating of plus 69, man, in 5 minutes, right? Obviously a tiny sample size, but we've only seen this lineup for 2 games. And it's been definitely successful, man. Also, as I said, we've seen an Alvarado Diawara lineup for 12 minutes with Shamet, Josh Hart, and Carl Towns. Those guys have played 3 games together, 12 minutes. That has an offensive rating of 150, right, in the 12 minutes, right, which is incredible, right? 41 net rating. But yeah, I'm most interested in this lineup together with Shamet and OG and Brunson, right? But Deuce coming back, man, is going to give us another dimension because you can remove Brunson from the equation if you want to. Let's say Brunson completely out of this lineup, throw in Deuce McBride. You've got even better defense. You've got Deuce, Alvarado, Shamet, OG, and Cat still with the floor spacing, but more defense as well, right? And Brunson can rest with 2 other legitimate ball handlers on the floor at the same time, right? So I know we're talking about Cat being the key most recently, but I'm keeping a close eye out, man, on these Deuce return lineups and who he's going to play with. Is it going to be Alvarado? Is there going to be the Deuce and Shamet lineups with Brunson to close it out? Dirty Dancer says, I don't even mind letting Cade beat us, take away the other guy's threes. Yeah, the outside of Cade, the other threat that I'm most worried about is Duran. Obviously, isolation, Duran 1v1. Duran's shown a lot of progression in terms of, he's going to put Cat under pressure. How is that matchup going to go? Are we going to have to force to bring in Mitch sooner into the ball game? Cade's a smart player, If he hasn't got it going, he's going to find a way to try to get Duran. He's going to try to get Duran going as well. So like you said, you got to slow down these other guys, the hustle, the physicality. But one thing that could be the wild card, man, let's talk about this. Road games. The Knicks have proven, especially with Jalen Brunson and co, they've proven that they can grit and win out on the road, right? Let's say we were to face Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals. We already know Game 1, Game 2 is going to be in Detroit, right? If Detroit win the first 2, it could be series right there, man. Knicks are under a world of pressure. But if the Knicks can win one of the first 2 and win back home court, right, then you put pressure under the young Detroit, team with lack of experience to win those games on the road. But They'll have to have proven themselves to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like you said, they're going to have to win road games in Cleveland or Philadelphia or wherever else they're going to play too. So that could be a stumbling block for Detroit, to even get to the Eastern Conference Finals, fam. They might be so locked in on beating the Knicks that they let slip and they let their guard down against some other team like Harden and Spider. Wouldn't that be crazy? Right. Speaking of Detroit, right, we do a quick score check, and we're in the third quarter right now. Pistons take the lead. So we got who's playing well? We got Cade Cunningham with 10 points, Duncan Robinson with 11, Ron Holland with 11. Jalen Duren is back, 8 points on 4 of 6 from the field. Osar Thompson has 8 points as well. Right, so a close game. It looks like the Spurs have just taken the lead. Then Devin Vassell is hot with 18 points, 5 of 8 from downtown. Julian Champagny, we know him. He's hot, 4 of 5 from downtown. De'Aaron Fox is 3 of 11, so he's in a funk. Victor Wembanyama is 2 of 11. So the Spurs, okay, no, score update. Pistons have just taken the lead again. But yeah, Victor and Fox have been inefficient. It's Devin Vassell and Champagny that's keeping them going. Also, in the series, man, it could just come down to like third, fourth options, winning you the series as well. We all talk about Cat, we talk about Brunson and Cade. It could come down to just Hart step up. Does Mikal Bridges look like the second best player on the floor in certain games, right? As much as we're down, our stock is down on Mikal Bridges, guys. There's no doubt about it. But he has the makeup. He has the skill set. He has the experience to take over a game or change a ball game, right? That can win you a playoff game or series as well. When you look beyond the stars, who deals best with the pressure and who can step up in a big moment, right? Is it going to be Ron Holland for them? Is it going to be a Stewart change a ball game? Are we going to get something out of Mikal Bridges, to really step up, get a couple of defensive stops, hit a couple of big threes, Is it Deuce McBride, right? When you stack up all the offensive weapons, Deuce McBride got to be probably better than, when he's going and when he's healthy, he's got to be better than any third option on Detroit, right? I would have Cade, I would have Duren, and Detroit fans would probably say Tobias Harris or Duncan Robinson or whoever. I would put Deuce McBride ahead of Tobias Harris, in my personal opinion. I mean, Deuce McBride been shooting one of the hottest before he got injured. He was one of the hottest offensive players in the league on the season. So, I think the Knicks truly got more offensive weapons. It's just about defense, slowing them down, and executing, ladies and gentlemen, right? So we looked at the Alvarado matchups, right? Positive signs moving forward. Now the Jeremy Sohan experiment, man. We're going to see this more over the next 5 games or so. And then I think Mike Brown is going to make a call on tightening it up, right? There is one lineup where Jeremy Sohan has been productive or effective at +6, and it's with Shamet Brunson, Anunoby, and Towns, man. Other guys that can space the floor out, and he brings the grittiness that some of those other guys need. So that's the one with the tick. It's only played 3 minutes together in one game. So that's why I'm not giving up on no Sohan experiment yet. It's just been too much of a small sample for me to make any, me to crash out or make any drastic decisions right now. If anything, you can crash out over the other things that Brown has been playing Sohan with Huck-Porty and with Mitchell Robinson, right? We don't even need to see those lineups together to know that they're not going to work. So the ones that are going to work is with the more spacing out there. And it's only been one game out of the 3. So Mike Brown, you have not been doing a good job of fitting in the newest piece with how he can fit best, right? There's no point playing him with Huck-Porty or with Mitchell Robinson or with Josh Hart, right? There's been one lineup with Josh Hart, there's been one lineup with Mitch, and there's been one lineup with Huck, which is 3 wasteful situations. So it's just been, poor decision making, no rationale behind that, right? When you picked up Sohan, you know what he is. And I can only hope that it's just been a mad science experiment and it's just been a couple games and he's just not going to do it anymore, right? Hopefully, man. Let's see, especially against Cleveland. Sohan's been playing well against Harden, out west. He's definitely done a good job of guarding James Harden, when it comes to that. So hopefully we see it on Wednesday night, fam. Actually, Tuesday night, I think, is the game. Let's bring it up. Yes, Cleveland Tuesday night, man. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. tip, right? Let's see how he closes the games out. We'll get our first look at James Harden and a continuing look at Alvarado and with Jeremy Sohan. But yeah, Mike Brown, my position is that he should use the next 9 games or so. We've got 24 games left. And then I think before 15 games remaining, depending on how Deuce McBride is recovering, he should settle on that rotation, right, for the playoffs with no less than 15 games remaining, man. Does Diawara get back into the mix? Hopefully, man. I'm rooting for one of these two, if not both, to get their opportunities. But Landry Shamet has definitely stole the show, and he is a must play, 20 minutes a night. And when we get Deuce back, that's just going to give us so much more weapons off the bench with Alvarado, Deuce, and Shamet. Right. I'm very comfortable with that backcourt off the bench. And then in crunch time, you could take out Josh Hart or McCall, depending on how it's going. But obviously, the biggest story, I think, is Karl Anthony Towns. The last 2 games is being featured. Brunson and him, 2-man games. Let's see if that is a point of emphasis against Jarrett Allen and the Cleveland Cavaliers and what they have to go up against. But it starts on the defensive end, fam, in my opinion. Because if Cat can't stay out of foul trouble, he's going to come off the floor immediately. So it does come down to Cat, yes, playing well offensively and continuing to play well offensively, but we cannot ignore defensively. It's still critical that he makes the right decisions and plays well and plays disciplined and makes the right calls, right? Staying out of foul trouble, especially. But the 3-point ball coming back has been excellent, man. So shout out to Cat, and hopefully Mike Brown has been a key as well to unlock that, and we will see more of it moving forward, right? So shout out to everyone in the building, ready for tomorrow night, hyped for that game, right? Let's see. The Knicks will have today, obviously, to rest. They were super tired last night, and they need to come out of the blocks fast against Cleveland. Let's see how we do. Orange and blue. We've got to get our 38th win, right? We might even get to 40 wins with 21 losses. I know that ain't the 40 and 20 Phil Jackson rule, but if we can get to 40 and 21, in my opinion, what's the difference? 40-20, 40-21, right? I still believe we are a championship squad. It just comes down to a lot of other things: coaching, health, rotations, execution, competition, all of that, right? But we just got to stay locked in, right? We do have playoff rises, guys, in my opinion. Guys will up their game in the playoffs, where we don't know 100% whether Detroit players can up their game in the playoff. Their game is already pretty high right now. Cleveland, we've seen their game regress when it comes to the playoffs. Boston, I'm comfortable that they're going to raise their game when it comes to the playoffs. But I'm very confident that the Knicks can raise their game in the playoffs. So that could be the key thing as well, right? We don't know what Detroit are going to do. I mean, if Detroit is able to raise their game on what they are now to the playoffs, then they're going to be the favorites. They're going to be the favorites to get to the finals if they can somehow raise their game. But I'll believe it when I see it, because they're playing at an unbelievable level. They're extremely locked in and focused, but they are young and they are quite predictable still, in my opinion. The Knicks have got less of that predictability about them. You know, we don't even know who's going to be the one to step up. That could be our weapon as well, fam. But yeah, bless up, peace up, and I will see you in the next one tomorrow night, post game against Cleveland. Peace.